So, you decided to play Destiny 2. Maybe it's the recent disappointment of other shooters like Call of Duty and Battlefield. Maybe it's out of curiosity from the recent Sony buyout. Or maybe it's just cause the latest Witch Queen expansion looks awesome. Welcome. A lot has changed lately in Destiny, and you might have some questions about how it all works. We're here to tell you everything you need to know to jump back into Witch Queen, no matter how long you've been gone. We'll have timestamps if there's a popular question that you're dying to have answered first. But like this video, sub to the channel, and seriously, please share. We want to cover Destiny, and the more we can bring the actual Destiny fans to our channel, the more content we can make. So do it, please. To get everyone on the same page, Destiny 2 is a constantly evolving game, so if you haven't touched it, even as far back as the Shadowkeep expansion when it went free to play, it might be quite different from what you remember. And I'll be honest with you, the game actually does a pretty piss poor job at onboarding new players. It can be intimidating if you decide to just hop in on your own. What with all the different vendors yelling at you to do quests for them, and the game throwing you into a seasonal mission and wait, what? There's a magical space horse or something?
The horse desires further proof of your abilities.
Okay, so to all of you new and relapsed players, think of this video as a Q&A that will hopefully answer some of your biggest questions as you dive into the game. Quick note, because the video releases right on the eve of Destiny's latest expansion, The Witch Queen, I'll be talking about the game from a post-Witch Queen release perspective. The first thing you need to know is to figure out what Destiny 2 is now. Well, it's not the vanilla game you may remember that barely had an endgame. We also won't see the light dark saga that Bungie refers to as the final shape ending for at least a couple years, so there's no point in waiting for Destiny 3 yet. If you've been wondering when's a good time to play, now is as good a time as ever.
Just don't say I didn't warn you.
Okay, well, let's get the big hurdle out of the way. What do you actually need to buy to enjoy Destiny? Well, Destiny 2 is a free-to-play game technically, which means you can load up the game and have access to a large amount of PvE content, PvP modes like the Crucible, and even the yearly events. You can even run around in expansion-specific locations, although there won't be much to do in them. Free-to-play is a good way to start if you just want to get a basic feel for the game while avoiding getting confused. Although Destiny 2 is really more free to start. The real juicy meat on these video game bones comes from the yearly expansions. This is where you get the new gear, story, campaign missions, activities, raids, really all of the game's best stuff. If you want to see the best Destiny has to offer, you'll need to pay for the expansions. This brings up another question. Well, which ones should you get? While conventional wisdom might have you think that you should go in order of release, you're actually better off picking up the most current expansion, which right now is the Witch Queen. There's no easy way to get caught up on the lore and story so far in-game, at least in a linear way. Despite those narrative roadblocks for new players, there is an objective truth in playing this game. Destiny is at its best when you're playing the current content with everyone else, and you're better off focusing on what's going to give you the best gameplay experience. If, later on, after wrapping up the Witch Queen, you're hungry to know just what the veteran players have been a part of the last half-decade or so, then you can always go and pick up the older expansions that are still available. Odds are you watch the Star Wars movies out of order, you can similarly deal with Destiny. You'll live. Well, it is 2022, and you aren't a modern live game if you don't have a seasonal model, so of course, Destiny has one. Seasons typically last around 3 months, subject to change, with 4 seasons between each yearly expansion. What comes in each season can vary, but it always includes a season pass, a new armor and weapon set, several new exotic weapons, new activities, and about 8 weeks of story content, give or take. While it is cheaper to pick up the season pass as a bundle with Witch Queen, I would say wait to see if you actually like Destiny enough to keep playing. For someone like me, the story content is the most compelling part. Rather than waiting a whole year for the new expansion, you get a new small story quest that continues the narrative each week. If you find yourself invested in Destiny's story, then the seasons are necessary to check out. Here's a pro tip: if you can spare the time, it's usually nice to log in once a week to play through the seasonal story beat. They usually involve the same seasonal activities, but with different dialogue, variations in the level design, or maybe even changes to the world space. These differences can be minor and exacerbated if you try to do 8 weeks of story content in one play session, and repeating the seasonal activity can feel like a slog, so enjoying them piecemeal each week is my recommendation. Still, of course, your mileage may vary. So you've got some gaps in your Destiny memory, or you're completely new. Not a problem. There are plenty of ways to get caught up, but very little unfortunately in-game. Go to the Director tab if you are happy with just a really brief summation. You'll notice a node on the destination map that will give you a timeline of just the major plot points, starting with the Red War, which was Destiny 2 Vanilla's original story campaign. Not only does the game give a brief few-sentence breakdown of the big expansions, but it also describes the evolving storyline throughout each season. The focus is to help you understand who some of the new characters in Destiny are, such as Crow or Keitel. There is, technically, a new light experience for newly created characters, but that basically consists of the opening Destiny 1 sequence, which is beautiful by the way. New players, you guys are in for a treat. But then there's a kind of bare-bones series of quests and tours of the tower, which can help you get your bearings for the gameplay and where the vendors are. However, it doesn't fully give you the proper backstory you might be looking for. It's worth mentioning again that the story at this point in time is incredibly non-linear. You'll want to approach it maybe like a jigsaw puzzle, getting different pieces at different times, and establishing a mental timeline if you plan on discovering the story exclusively in-game. Unfortunately, that means the only way you'll get caught up on the story is by playing older content, many of which pre-Shadowkeep are no longer available. However, let's suppose you prefer being completely caught up and you're the type that scours wikis or searches YouTube videos. In that case, you already know that the internet can be your friend. The only issue is that there are plenty of Destiny YouTubers who make it their sole purpose to break down Destiny lore, but the barrier of entry can be high. Sorry Bife, but not everyone has 4 hours to watch a video. Big fan though. Good thing though, for those of you in a rush, is that we got a solution for you. Check out GameSpot's own Phil Hornshaw. The man is a lore machine, trust me, I play with him like every week. He eats, drinks, and even takes over GameSpot raid live streams with lore breakdowns. But he also has some really nice and easy to digest story and lore catch-ups for new and old players alike. I have the link to his articles in the description of this video. Definitely check him out. New players might not know, but lapsed players are painfully aware of the level grind between expansions, particularly if you've been away from the game for an extended period. Mainly because power level dictates what kind of activities you can do. The higher your power level, the more content you can experience. Great news for everyone, in The Witch Queen, every old and new character will have their level at 1350, so everyone gets an even footing to climb to the expansion's power level cap. The Witch Queen has a complete refresh of new armor to chase, and there's going to be a lot of fun new weapons to mess around with. The short answer is that you can almost play everything solo if that's your vibe. You're also going to get completely bombarded with people telling you that you should play with friends or other people. And the real answer, well, it's honestly a mixture of the two, and it all depends on what your desired outcome from Destiny is. If you are interested in the story, you definitely want to play with like-minded friends who also want to listen to the cutscenes or pause their conversations to let the radio comms and dialogue play out. Because so much of Destiny is told throughout character interactions and conversations, radio chatter, readable flavor text on weapons, armor pieces, and lore books. All of this story is just kind of scattered throughout the game. And this can be really hard to pay attention to if your buddies are just kind of chatting in your ear about their day. However, that is also totally fine because hanging out and chilling with your friends is perfect for almost literally everything else in Destiny.
Forever.
Yeah, I went the wrong way, and then
I think
You guys are all going the wrong way.
Strikes, Crucible, Gambit, Patrol, side quests, and leveling up are absolutely better with a group of friends just goofing off and having a blast.
So, do you think the one that says "don't go in it" is actually the right one? Yeah.
Oh, it must be.
Oh.
Spikes.
Oh, but there is a. Oh man.
This is great.
It's a really fun and smoother gameplay experience when you're stacked with a team. There are pros to having friends that are veterans of the game, as they can potentially give you guidance and explain questions you have on the go as you fight the bad guys. If you want to play solo, keep in mind that certain activities have required matchmaking. Strikes, Crucible, and Gambit, they'll automatically match you with other players to cooperate or compete against in these activities. Higher difficulty content like dungeons, raids, and legend level nightfalls are greater, they'll strongly suggest pre-made fire teams of 3 to 6 players. For other parts of Destiny, expect to see other players, also known as blueberries, pop in and out of the area around you, either in patrol zones or the shared social spaces like the tower. Say hi to one of them or bust a dance move. Trust me, it's a good time. So, we got a tough decision. Should you start fresh, or return to an old character? If you only have one character, well, now is a great time to do some soul searching and see if you actually like the class that you chose. Titans, yeah, they're clunky. Warlocks, of course, are badass. And hunters are overrated. I get it. If you haven't been gone for too long, then keep the old character. There's no point in going through the new light process again and having Drifter treat you like some kind of rookie if you've already slain a hive god or two in your time. Depending on how long you've been away from Destiny, one thing that you should do immediately is set up your crossplay accounts. All your progress is saved if you decide to play on a platform and then swap to another at any point. It is incredibly convenient, and I recommend you get it set up if you haven't right away. Yeah. Many a content creator has built their entire brand on telling you what guns to use or not use. It might even be their fault that you seem to be dying to the same exact loadout used by 90% of the Crucible population, but don't fret. One of Destiny's best perks, pun intended, is build crafting your armor and weapon loadout for different activities. Armor mods can let you build for damage buffs, ability recharge, and even these crazy balls of energy that can suppress, heal, zap, or straight up explode. Meanwhile, certain weapon perks on the slow gun can help them reload faster than they reasonably should, or grant you better recoil stability. Some can activate when you're crouched or work in certain situations, like dealing more damage against bosses. There are a lot of opportunities to experiment. We're gonna get a little inside baseball here, but what you want to keep in mind in terms of what a good loadout is to factor in the meta. Bungie likes to shuffle the cards based on player feedback and their internal data. They'll nerf weapons that are really hot, buff underused perks and archetypes, or rework them entirely. The meta changes every season, so get what looks cool, feels good, or makes you happy.
No way.
If you want to have a competitive loadout, look at the seasonal artifact if you have the season pass, and focus on weapons with some of those cool mods. It's a good place to start. For example, Particle Deconstruction is a mod that has made linear fusion rifles real nasty this past season, and the rework to Arbalist or Sleeper Simulant has made it a must-have in certain elite endgame activities like Grandmaster Nightfalls or raids. Also, some perks might be great on one type of weapon, but not on the other. Some are fine by themselves, but might have awesome synergy when paired together. Conversely, a perk that doesn't seem great suddenly becomes even deadlier in the right package. That being said, in general, it is a safe bet to aim for perks that help your first shot land true, speed up your reload, or give you a damage buff in combat. I can rattle off some perks you want to look for real quick. So PvP benefits from perks like Rangefinder, Snapshot, Explosive Rounds, Opening Shot, Kill Clip, Rampage, just to name a few. In PvE, you can mess with perks like Outlaw, Headstone, Subsistence, Rampage, Vorpal Weapon, Clown Cartridge. The list goes on, there's just so many of them. Just keep in mind that some weapons like swords or rocket launchers will have their own exclusive perks. Now, just because the internet is yelling at you to have a very particular loadout does not mean that you should toss away weapons with unpopular perks, because that is for you to decide. There are a lot of great perks that are not meant to go in competitive PvP or raids, but they make blasting a bunch of minions a lot of fun during patrols. Do not feel overwhelmed. It might be scary at first, but trust me, you can play a majority of the content without actually having to worry about these best weapon rolls. All of this stuff really starts to matter once you get into the higher tier of content. So until then, enjoy yourselves. Keep in mind, there is enough information overload to drive anyone nuts with build customization and situational use. But if we are to break this down at a kind of high level, very generally speaking, armor specifically has two considerations: stat builds and mod builds, and I'll use my character as an example. Every armor piece has 6 stats. 3 of them involve your movement and your health bar, so bear with me. Mobility is how fast you run and how high you jump. Resilience is for how much damage you can take. Recovery is how fast you regain back health when you're hurt. Each of these three also determines how fast you gain your class's special ability to recharge back. Titan shields regen faster the more resilience you have, hunters can dodge more often the higher their mobility is, and warlocks get their rifts on a shorter cooldown with higher recovery. The remaining 3 stats involve your abilities. Discipline affects your grenade cooldown, intellect for your super recharge rate, and strength for your charged melee abilities like fireballs, hammer throws, or smoke grenades, to name a few. Each total character stat has a number value out of 100, while your armor pieces individually have number values for each section out of 40, with your character gaining a tier for every total denomination of 10. So any total value for a stat in the 50s, tier 5, 60s, tier 6, and so on. So take a look at my character right now. We're going to use him as an example. This is my warlock. There are many like it, but this one is mine. And I really like the subclasses that factor in his grenades like Stasis, Dawnblade, Voidwalker, which are some of my favorites. So the 2 stats I want to prioritize on this guy are his recovery and discipline. Sure, I'm slower than I'd like and my super is going to take a long time to charge up, but the Crucible meta right now, from what I can see, has shifted away from ability spamming anyway, so it's not really a priority for me. But what I was thinking when I made this build is that I can personally guarantee to myself that my rifts will come back fast. My grenades will regen within 30 seconds at most, and this will let me use my subclass to its full potential with my playstyle. So I can now consistently consume my grenade to fly high and have perfect air accuracy as a Dawnblade, or I can throw a freezing ice stasis turret, or I can overcharge a void heat-seeking Axion bolt. And man, that has gotta be good for at least a kill or 2, if not an assist, each time that I use it.
Okay. Right on.
So now that you can kind of see where my thinking was when I made my armor build, you guys should be able to do the same. Think about what you like about your subclasses and suit your builds accordingly. A good goal is to try to get at least 2 stats into the tier 10 category. If you are lucky and can maximize some mods, you can even get 3 tier 10 stats. So, that covers the stats, but what about the other half of armor building, right? The mods. The important thing to know is that mods are exclusive to different pieces like your helmet, arms, chest, legs, and class item. Helmets will let you find particular ammo more often, or they can give you better accuracy. There are also mods tied to elemental affinity, and this might get a little complicated, but to make it easy, just pay attention to the symbol on each armor piece and note if it's void, solar, or arc. Take some time to read what the mods in the last slot of each armor piece do as well, because these can add special gameplay mechanics in combat. Here's some examples. You have Warmind cells, which have fun perks based on using certain weapons. Enjoy them while they last, because I'm pretty sure they're getting reworked. There are also elemental wellmakers that help regenerate abilities and grant extra perks. At the same time, other mods may have a hidden ability that will activate if you have your build set up in a particular way. Some of the best mods are seasonal mods that cycle out. Passive Guard, Breach and Clear, Oppressive Darkness, these are all mods that will make any veteran get a glossy-eyed look with nostalgia. Fair guess to say Witch Queen mods? No different. Expect to see the community go wild with some crazy combinations this very season. So, Stasis was the first subclass to take advantage of the all-new overhauled 3.0 system. The 3.0 system is a new type of subclass customization tree that combines the subclass with 2 new concepts, aspects and fragments. Aspects are class-specific perks, while fragments are universal across classes. You can mix and match different fragments based on how many fragment slots your aspects give you. Some aspects will offer stat penalties or bonuses as a trade-off for the type of perks they offer, and they can do some cool stuff. This season, the Void subclass is getting the 3.0 treatment as well, which is why its user interface will look like Stasis. Arc and Solar will have 3.0 iterations this year in future seasons, but for now, the UI has the older look that all of the subclasses used to have ever since Destiny 2's launch. So you want exotics? Well, you can get them in lots of ways. The more you play, the more chance you will have to get exotics just dropping over time, but there are certain methods to raise your chances at getting exotic weapons and armor to drop. The easiest way right off the bat is to buy the season pass for the seasonal exotic, or just wait for Xur to show up and shop his inventory for most other exotics. Xur is a vendor who appears on the weekends. Each week, he sells 3 exotic armor pieces, 1 for each class, and a random exotic weapon. He also offers an exotic engram that will drop a random exotic tied to whatever class you purchase it with. Be sure to stash any legendary shards that you get, as that is the main currency that he accepts. There are also specific exotic quests that will have you explore certain areas or complete side quest type steps. These exotics do not drop from the general loot pool, so definitely take some time to chase them down. For any exclusive exotics with vaulted activities, you will find almost all of them in the exotic terminal. This is especially good for coveted raid exotics like Anarchy, Teraba, and more. Lastly, you can check endgame activities that grant exotic armor as a common drop, such as Grandmaster Nightfalls. However, this is not something new players will be expected to achieve right off the bat. Your best bet is to simply play the game, take your time, try a raid when you're ready, and definitely hit up Xur often. More times than not, Destiny is a game that gives you better payout the more that you play. However, sometimes RNG will screw you over, and apologies in advance, we've all been there. Suppose you want your character to simply be good enough to play all the activities. In that case, the best way is to grab a team and tough it out through the new Legendary Story missions. Completing the Witch Queen's campaign at Legendary difficulty will grant you one armor set which is at a raid-ready power level, and that'll affect the power level of all of your other future drops. Otherwise, if you're simply a free-to-play player, you will most likely be spending a good amount of time running strikes and fighting in the Crucible. You'll hit the power level hard cap anywhere from a day if you are a maniac to a week or two of consistent play. If you want a really good character with an elite PvE and PvP loadout, all maxed out, quests unlocked, caught up on everything that you'll need, well, let's just say you'll need a good amount of time. Okay. Alright, this is the most important thing to know, especially if you've been on the fence with Destiny or you had a bad early experience in the past before they iterated on the game. Without question, raids are the most difficult, challenging, and rewarding activities if you never experienced them. They're all worth trying at least once. LFG is basically just looking for a group, and it's a nice way to get into these tough activities. But you want to be careful and make sure you find a group willing to take on a new or a rusty player and that they are patient. It can be daunting falling into a toxic group that just wants to grind out the raid as fast as possible. There are plenty of Sherpa groups that are super friendly and more than willing to help. The best case scenario though is to grab a group of friends and run in blind, trying to solve all this shit yourselves. Dungeons are fun raid lights, and they're also worth doing. They're a lot less hassle than raids, requiring a team of 3 players instead of 6, and a great endgame activity to run if you have a smaller group wanting a crack at something different from the usual activities. Beyond that, Crucible is my personal favorite, and where I spend most of my time. I'm a pretty good shot if I do say so myself too.
I like that type of energy. You switched to a sniper.
Any PvP shooter fan will feel right at home here with modes that reflect Team Deathmatch, Domination Conquest, and a competitive survival mode. Trials of Osiris is another PvP beast and worth a try if you're a PvP diehard. We have another video that breaks down all of the changes to the Trials of Osiris, many of these changes being for the better. Otherwise, you just want to explore. I get it. In that case, the story and seasonal activities are where you want to spend your time. Destiny has turned into an evolving world, and it's always worth tuning in every now and then to see what's been going on with the storytelling each season. Also, a personal favorite, there are plenty of hidden secrets in the game in the patrol zones that can be scanned by your ghost. Hop into Nessus, go through a Vex portal, and see how far you can go. Destiny the Witch Queen is at max hype right now, and the story is about to be incredible with all the build-up over the last 7 years from Destiny 1 coming to this moment. If Lightfall in the final shape is going to be like Avengers Endgame, then Witch Queen certainly feels like Infinity War, and I'm 100% here for it. Trust me, if you haven't played yet or you fell off, I'm sorry to say that you may have missed out on some really cool shared experiences, but that's okay, because you're back now. And there's even more to discover and experience together, and that is all that matters. See you on the field, Guardian.